All right, Sam, how you doing?
Yeah, André, not too bad. Not too bad.
Another special episode with another special guest.
Another special guest. They are all special.
Do you want to make the introduction?
Yeah, so we've got Philip Waite of Techy Business Services. Welcome, Philip. Really great to have you here.
Yeah, really nice to be here.
Fantastic. So, as we will start with everyone that we talk to, Philip, we want to know all about you. We want to know the things that drive you to do what you do and the passions that you have behind your business. So just to start with, just tell us about Techy Business Services. What is it and how did you get into it?
Techy Business Services is 15 years old now, and really we built it from the passion of believing that local businesses were not getting served properly on the digital marketplace. So in other words, websites were being charged a fortune for, and people were not getting results. Only a customer only the other day said, my husband's got a website. We paid £3,500 for it 10 years ago, and it was a one-page website.
Wow.
They were just getting ripped off. So our passion is to focus really on smaller businesses and looking to try and help them get a decent digital footprint.
Fantastic.
It's the thing, isn't it? Because obviously a digital footprint, especially for a local small business, is probably one of the most important things because that's the first place people go to. But I feel like some businesses, including mine, when we first starting, we always feel like, oh, everyone is charging X amount. So it's so difficult, especially on a local level, to find someone that can actually provide that service at a decent price and that can actually provide you a decent service as well. So I think if those are your main focus points, that's incredible.
That's really what we really do focus on, and it's our passion. It really is our passion.
And you talk about keeping things local. So is that exclusive to your client base? Is it mainly people in and around the Horsham district, or does it go further than that? Or
no, it goes countrywide. When I talk about local, it's local to the business that we're supporting.
I see.
So in other words, we've got a pub down in Exmouth, for example. So it doesn't matter where they are, so long as they're selling locally.
Gotcha.
We don't work with any national brands.
Okay, no, that's great to clarify, actually. So then you're talking about people who are very much focused towards their own local community.
Correct.
And their client base is very much then, I guess this would lead in nicely to some things you talk about into how we attract that client base through digital marketing, but keeping things where it's very much relatable, it makes sense to the people who are in and around that area.
Absolutely.
And that must be a job though, right? If you're going nationally and doing this
it's challenging at times, definitely.
Yeah.
Because markets are different.
Of course.
We've got businesses up in Huddersfield, which is very different from businesses in Exmouth or in Horsham. So they're selling to different people. But ultimately, it's just presenting those businesses effectively online. Just as long as we know and understand who their target market is.
Yeah. And what do you see then as, you talked a little bit about an example that you gave of someone who's paying for the odds for something that wasn't really serving them. But what do you think of the challenges that business owners might be facing around their digital footprint, and how do you solve that for them? And I guess what I'm alluding to ultimately is what is it that I don't know that I should know, or that we don't know that we should know? What's our kind of gap in our knowledge around that whole space?
I think the starting point is always the wrong thing businessmen do. They say, I need to have a website. That's actually not the starting point. Okay. The starting point is, what are the keywords that people are typing into Google or any other search engine to find that business? Yeah. And then you've got to decide what those are, and then you've got to optimize your website and your copy on your website for those terms so that you show up when people search for those terms. Otherwise, Google doesn't know when to show that website. So it really is keywords first. That's the most important thing. And then the other thing which people don't realize is you've got to show that you're solving a problem. The person who arrives on your website has got a problem. I've got a leaking tap. I want it fixed. Yes. They don't care about the business. They just want the problem solved. Yeah. And you read most websites, it's all about them. It's not about the customer. It's not about the problem you're solving. And that's the other thing that really people, particularly local businesses, don't get.
Why do you think that is? Well, because it seems really obvious when you say it. But even I struggle. If someone said to me, Sam, what problem do you solve? Or I guess, André, you must have this, right?
Absolutely.
If someone said, oh, you're a videographer, I don't know, they wouldn't ask it necessarily in that way, but what problem do you solve? Actually, do you know what? I kind of find that tricky to answer in a way that might necessarily immediately makes sense to the person I'm talking to. It might make sense to me.
Yep.
But
well, let's say take a wedding photographer, for example. I recommended a wedding photographer for my youngest daughter. It was a mistake. The photographs were actually not very good. So it's a question of how do you...
Just think it wasn't me, was it? No.
But the problem you're solving is actually I want the best photographer for my daughter's wedding. I want the best family portraits for my family because it's historic. I want to have the best video at the wedding. So it's those sorts of problems that you're solving rather than saying on your website, I'm the best photographer in Horsham for weddings. They don't care about that. That you've got to demonstrate that you're actually solving their problem.
Absolutely,
and I think it's a difficult one because I'll give you my personal example. So my brother built my website, and I really love it. I'm really proud of it, but that's where it falls short is the fact that I went into creativity first, and then keywords, and then SEO and the rest. So you open the website, it looks great, but nowhere will you find what problems I solve. It just says, weddings, real estate, whatever it says, and that's it. And now I'm having that problem because if someone goes and searches for West Sussex videographer, it just doesn't show up. And now we're on a process of actually working through that. And it would have been so much easier if we started with that first. But again, I think, like you said, it's just something that we don't take into consideration.
Why should you? And also the other thing is that business owners don't realise that you've actually got... The website's got to appeal to three things. It's got to appeal to Google. It's got and the back end of your website, which is the second one, is all about the on-page SEO, making sure that everything is right. You've got to install things like schemas. Who knows what a schema is? Why should you know? But it's essential to have it there.
Good to know. You're right.
And only finally do you need to appeal to the person who's actually reading the website. If you don't get it in front of them, they're not going to read it anyway.
Well, there it is.
That's it. That is it.
So you've got to think about presenting it so that Google knows where you are, who you're serving. The number of local businesses, websites I look at, and they don't even say where they're based or who they serve.
That is a thing. That's something I've noticed more and more.
So how does Google going to know? It's not going to guess. So therefore it says, I'm not going to bother to show it.
That's it. And we had conversations in the past as well where obviously we can work on that now and we're now aware of that, but we were talking about overviews, but I suppose that's something we'll leave a little bit later as a teaser on how Edge or wherever you're searching now will give you that AI overview, but we'll go back into that. So you said that the business started 15 years ago because you felt the need to serve the local community and
Very
also the businesses and them serving their local communities. How do you get to that point?
Oh, that's a long story. As you can tell from my grey hair,
long stories,
it's a long story. I did 20 years in the city before I did anything in technology. So I was one of those traders years ago, sort of screaming and shouting and getting very upset when we lost a lot of money or made a lot of money.
So yes, the Wolf of London Bridge.
Exactly. So I did 20 years doing that, and then So this took us up to 1999, and just at the height of the sort of bubble before it burst about the internet bubble, and I'd invested in a company that was building online communities for schools actually back in 1999, so closed communities, so it was safe for them, and that failed during the bubble, but technology then was really what I wanted to be involved in. So I left the city and joined a company where we provided online computer support, and from there I then split with my partner there, and I set up Techy Business Services in 2015, and actually 7 of the people who I work with joined me from the old company. So some of them I've been working with now for 20 plus years.
Wow.
So we've got a strong team, and that's really where it's come from. So it's a fairly diverse 40-year career.
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah. Brilliant. And so tell us a bit about your process. So let's say potential business, or you let's say you spotted a business, or a business has spotted you and said, oh, okay, this is maybe something that I need. You've talked about the 3 things it would need to appeal to. So where do you start with that business owner who maybe they've just started their business, or they have a website that doesn't function for them? How do you break this down? Where do you make sure that you hone it in? Because you talked about earlier about Huddersfield's different to down, in Horsham or Newquay or whatever. So talk us a bit about that. How do you solve that issue?
We've created what we call a digital playbook. And it's literally 4 slides on a PowerPoint presentation. And I will talk them through exactly what you need to do, what the processes are, starting with the keywords, and then building out the core structure of any local website. And there are a lot of things that people don't even think about creating pages on. For example, a service area. I was saying that a lot of websites don't actually say where they serve. Create a page, doesn't have to be on the navigation console, but create a page that is called service area. Google then knows that's the area you serve. And you list all the main towns that you're working in and around. So at least they know. Create a town page. So in other words, if you're working around Horsham, you mention Horsham on your service area page. Create a page about Horsham and the services that you offer in Horsham. So again, Google can understand. It can go from the service area page through to the town page. So it understands what you're offering. So the digital playbook just walks people through what you need to do, the keywords, the core build, the optimized copywriting, and then the on-page SEO. And then from there, we then have sort of growth packages. We can go from there. But it's really just trying to explain in a very simple format. And I don't mean simple to be derogatory in any way. I don't know how to be a car mechanic. I don't know how to service my car. So I don't expect people necessarily to know about how to build a website. But trying to explain to them simply how it should be. I don't really care if they go somewhere else. I really don't. But I want them to be informed so they can go and talk to another web developer and say, look, I've heard this is how it should be done. Education is the big thing for me. It's an absolute passion of mine, is to actually give local business owners the information to be able to go and at least get the best results for themselves.
Yeah, and I'll just say, André, I think let's second this to Phil, because we know from conversations that we've had that that's exactly how you present yourself. You are very much about educating anyone that's around you around things that are very, very topical and very, very visceral to businesses in terms of their digital footprint. You've given me so much great advice in the past, and André, I'm sure you can say the same. But I love that approach you have, because it makes such a difference to trust and how we then perceive you as your business that you talk about. That passion is then very, very real, because it's coming from a very real place, but also gets us kind of inspired to do more with our digital footprint in ways that we would have just thought, God, this is a real headache before, but actually no, this isn't a headache. This is something that actually we can embrace.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make something really great from. So thank you for doing the way that you do it.
You're very welcome. But it's important.
It is really important. I think more and more we see, because the competition is so high, and obviously a lot of people are doing the same things or similar things to what we are doing and to what you're doing. I feel like people tend to close those answers behind doors, don't
Absolutely.
they? And
Absolutely.
And that, to me,
it's a black art.
That's it. Yeah. Would you like to know that? Well, then there's an extra fee.
Yeah.
And I think it's so... I don't even know if noble is the right word. I think it might be a bit too much, but for you to be so open about it and so enthusiastic about educating people and showcasing what they could be doing or what they could change to just improve on that little subject a little bit more.
That is my passion, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's all about the whole integrity thing we've spoken about in other podcast episodes as well. Like, I know that, we help each other out in terms of, André, I need to do a bit of video here. Can you show me how to do it? Vice versa. I've had photographers come to me and say, Sam, how did you get that image? I don't quite understand the technique you use. Cool, let's talk through it. Absolutely. I'm totally happy to teach this stuff to you because for me, I live and breathe it. I love talking about it with anyone. There's no secrets to how I do it, right? And that approach that you take, we can all relate to that, and it's wonderful. And so then, what do you think business owners should be most looking out for now, kind of going forward in terms of web presence? Because there's so much developments everywhere across the board, be it in how algorithms work, be it in how search engines work. AI is a huge thing. Of course, we're not we're not naive to that.
What's
and that's
AI?
just going to grow and grow. I think it's short for a county somewhere. But it's so. And this must be, you must be absolutely just, up to your neck with the developments that are coming out, all the things that you have to be super mindful of. So without, going into a huge sort of encyclopedia of AI and web development, what do you think are the great tidbits that, business owners would be really, really, would really benefit them to know?
It's a big question at this stage. It is the big question, because ever since November 2022, when ChatGPT came out, although there was AI before that, this is when it really hit the news. The world has changed so fast. And if we think people who are sort of old enough to remember when the internet came out, 10 years of the internet is about 1 year of AI time. And that's how fast it's changing. And I think without a doubt, the bus has not left. But you need to get on board now. You need to start thinking about how is AI and automation. It's not just AI and using the large language models, but it's also automation. How can I improve my processes? How can I save time? And that's where automation will come in. It's not so much that you're going to lay people off. I don't agree with that at all necessarily. I think it will have some effects, a bit like all sort of automation of the car industry. People were laid off. But there are other opportunities, and I think that's where people have got to get on board. They've got to think, not bury their head. It's here. It's not going away anywhere. So get up to date. Learn how to write a prompt in AI to get the best results. Because I always say it's garbage in, garbage out. If you just put a generic question in, write me a blog, it's going to come out and write a blog, but it's not going to be of any interest to anybody. But if you write a 60, 70 word or a 10-line prompt in detail, it will come out with some pretty good results. So I think people have to definitely get on board with that. It's affecting everybody. But I think what people need to do is they need to think about how they can actually use it in their businesses. So what are the processes they've got? How can they automate those processes? How can they use AI for creating content, creating videos now? Sorry. But the new Google video content tool is unbelievable. It's not going to make your next 30-second advert yet, but it's definitely here to stay, and people need to get to use it.
Yeah, I think it's so important that people do that, because you will miss the bus. It's ready to go, and I'm quite grateful that I was there on the 22nd of November, even though against my will initially, because I just couldn't cope with the thought of, oh no, I'm what is going to happen to me if I just get to use this. Whilst now I feel like okay, fine. If I don't want to use it for idea generation, I can use it for content planning. I can use it for organizing my to-do list. I can, there's so many other aspects of it that if you don't want it, if you're really against using it for creativity, you can just employ it anywhere else, and it will still have an impact, a major impact on your workflow and everything you've got to do.
And your home life. Yeah. I mean, people have never used AI. Just go to one of them, whether it's ChatGPT or Google, and just say, I don't know, write me a bedtime story for my 6-year-old involving dragons and involving, I don't know, mermaids, and see what comes out. It's unbelievable.
I want to try that now, actually. No, Ariel, she's going to breathe fire. Don't do it.
Or take a photograph of your fridge and say, write me a recipe with what's in my fridge.
That's it.
Just simple things. It doesn't have to be, world changing, but to be able to just use it.
Well, I'm looking forward to that Pepsi Max fondue later. Oh, sorry, product placement. Oops.
But yeah, home life and work life, it's definitely there, definitely coming in a big way.
It's a whole new way of thinking. Like you just talked about these, these prompts that on the face of it seem very simple, but you have to get in the right mindset. Otherwise, you'll never see the opportunities that are staring you right in the face.
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right.
And I think like now, if someone is coming in, because there's so much already, it can get a little bit overwhelming. But it's definitely about prompt generation and how you write it. Exactly what you mentioned earlier about the 10 line. You can just say, write me a story for my kids about dragons and mermaids. But you can go 10 steps further and say, that has this adjacent line or inner thought about fairness and just something else that can tell it, that has a moral to it. And all of a sudden you have a completely different script, different story, but has a lot more meaning. It's just about spending a little bit more time and really refining what you're writing.
And also it's a bit like taking your kids 10-pin bowling when they're very young. You put up the bumpers down the side, so you can tell it what not to do as well as what to do. Yeah. So, for example, it took me a long time to figure out how to get rid of the Americanisms. Mm-hmm. But just put in the prompt, use British English. Yeah. And it comes out spelling colour correctly.
So you're just shouting Queen's English wasn't coming in.
Didn't work. But then also, it's got an annoying habit of putting colons in the headings. So say, do not put colons in the headings. And it uses, and I understand grammatically correct, those long dashes, which are actually called EM dashes, I believe they are. Don't use them, and it doesn't. So it's not just what you want out of it, but it's actually giving it the guidelines as to what to include as well as exclude.
I mean, that's a fascinating example as well, because that is how I write and wrote way before 2022 November, right? And it's just, oh damn it! Now everything I write looks like ChatGPT. It's muscle memory. I'm very much like blah, 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 dash blah, 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 blah. Can't do that anymore. No. And I always have to just double check. Oh no.
Remove it.
But that's how I do it. Yeah. But it's a real thing. I've heard, I don't necessarily know anyone firsthand, but I've heard through, trusted colleagues of people who work in copywriting, and people have rejected their work because they say, no, this looks like it was done by AI. It's like, no, I'm just really good at
it. Is grammatically
correct. I'm just really good at what I do. Yeah. That's why it looks great.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting space.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And to be fair, going back to the video stuff, I feel like most people are really scared about it, especially people in my industry, because of the possibilities that there are out there. And we were talking about this earlier, and I just feel like, again, it's just how you implement it. Instead of seeing it as a threat, you see it as a tool. All of a sudden now we've got access to visual effects that would have cost Hollywood tens of thousands of pounds to produce. And now we can really, especially now with VO3, it's incredible. I don't know, it makes people like me, who is a one-man or two-man band, able to offer services and visuals that are only possible now with crews of 10 plus members.
It enhances your creativity. It doesn't replace it. I think it actually enhances it.
Well, exactly. And I think it works both ways in that respect, because if you're creating through AI, it creates a platform that enables you to do these things, then great. Then you're enabled to use your creativity in a very different way than you were before, rather than, I guess, I certainly felt this way at some points, thinking, this gives everyone an unfair advantage. Well, no, but if it gives everyone an unfair advantage, then we're all still on the same playing field.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, what can I do with this then? And that's the mindset that we historically, as human beings, have had with everything. Okay. I don't have to walk there. I can get in this motor car thing now. But oh gosh, that's cheating. No.
But just go back to the horse.
Go back to the horse. Yeah.
I just eat raw meat. not using fire.
What the hell? But it's a fascinating place to be, and there's so many. I mean, it seems you again, Philip. You see this so much, but for me, it seems every week there's something else that hits you in the face of, oh gosh, that sounds like something I should really be embracing or understanding. And there's other pitfalls. There's a lot of, like with anything like this, when there are new innovations, there's also a bit of, okay, you need to be a bit cautious about this. You do need to be a bit like, is this white noise? Is this actually, charlatans talking charlatan speak?
Yeah, and don't go and chase the latest thing always. I think actually pick one or two, get to use them properly, use them well. Don't worry about, if I go and use this one, it's got this tool, or I go and use that one, it's got this tool. Yeah. Ultimately, they're all going to have the same tools in them, because if that works over here, it's going to be added in here as well. So don't worry too much. There are certain ones that are better at writing than other ones. There are better ones that code than other ones, but just get used to actually playing with it. As a local business owner, play with it, get used to it, bring it into the business, bring in automation into the business as well, because that's really where it's next going to go, because you can combine the two, and that's when you get real efficiencies. So it's saving time, it's allowing you to be more creative, it's allowing you to be to serve more customers at the end of the day. So I think the people who do actually embrace it will become more efficient.
Fantastic. And I guess we sort of alluded to this a little bit in what we were talking about before, but so we talked about some great opportunities. We talked about automation and AI together. Are you seeing any pitfalls? Are you seeing any directions that perhaps business owners or people in that space ought to avoid, or maybe have some trepidation towards? Are you seeing things that that may be not as beneficial to you as you think it's coming out?
There's one big one.
Yeah.
And all of these tools actually are beginning to allow to link into your Google Drive or link into your Dropbox or link into other places where you've got company information. The big thing you've got to be cautious of is the GDPR.
Yeah.
So in other words, suddenly I've got a list of my customers' information sitting on a CRM system, and you've linked it up to ChatGPT, thinking, I'll be able to pull that in but not thinking about what are my responsibilities for that data.
Yes.
So really be very cautious about linking any to a depository of your information to any of the large language models, because suddenly you're not in control of that data, and under GDPR rules, you must be under control.
Yeah, if you're a data controller, you have that responsibility to do it.
Correct.
And I think the fines for getting that wrong are astronomical. Yeah. You don't even want to mess around with that.
And for a small business, that's one thing just to be cautious of. Certainly.
Yeah, well, that's great. Actually, just great to put that in there, because I think some of us certainly, I had some awareness of that. I'm generally through my other life, have come across a lot of data protection issues that I need to be very au fait with. But I can imagine people may be a little bit blind to that sometimes.
Don't even think about it. They think, I'll just be able to... Because then I'll be able to pull this in, and I'll be able to send out emails, and I'll be able to do this and do that and do that. But actually, it's somebody else's data.
It's somebody else's data. And that stuff has changed very quickly in the last 5 to 10 years. It's become very much... it felt to me, at least, from no one really pays much attention to this at any level, to everyone now does, apart from when you don't, and then it's really consequential.
Absolutely.
So it's really good advice. Yeah, fantastic.
Excellent. So we touched upon AI, and now you just teased in a little bit of automation. Are there any particular automations that you see beneficial straight away for business owners, and how can they implement that, for example, via their website or into their digital presence?
I mean, there are some very simple automations that go alongside a website. For example, if you've got a contact form on your website, somebody fills it out. Well, 10 years ago, that was just emailed to the business owner, and they did with it what they wanted to do with it. But why not now link it up to an email marketing system, so that you can then have a series of maybe educational emails that go out to keep you front of mind for the person who's made the inquiry. And that can go on. You can have them set up for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, 5 months, just because somebody may not be at the point of buying from you yet. But keeping you front of mind with an email sequence is a brilliant way, and that's automation. But that's been around for a number of years now. But now there are other ways of being able to set up automation. For example, you can get automation that will go out to do cold calling. physically it will call. So you can use AI to make the call. I'm not necessarily in favour of that, but it's available. Or it could be an email campaign. It could be, you might be a company that's got, 1,000 dead leads that's never gone anywhere, but you could set up now an email outbound sequence to go back out to them again to see whether they're there. Supporting people. So let's say you run a podiatrist or a chiropractor, and somebody wants to make a call for a booking. You can now have automation that will actually answer the phone call, check the calendar to see when availability is, book you in, send you an email to confirm the booking, and then maybe 3 days beforehand, send you a text to confirm the booking. Yeah. So the business owner or the secretary or whoever's taking the books never needs to talk to them. Now, if you have that sort of automation, you always want to have that ability to, do you want to talk to a human? Because you want to find out more about the chiropractor rather than just booking in a meeting, or a session. But that's exactly what you need to do, is build in that automation there. You don't need anybody to take that call.
That's it. And you mentioned that you were not in favour of some of these automations. Why did you decide to? Because we know that there's people out there that are really against it. In all sorts of industries, including ours and yours. What has made you embrace it rather than be fearful of it?
Good question. I think it's because it's coming. You've definitely got to embrace it. You've got to be aware, whether it is things like GDPR and things like that, you've got to be aware. I think you've also got to be aware that you are dealing with humans. So if you're a businessman, actually selling is human interaction. It's not necessarily having somebody send you an email and sell it off the page. So I think you've got to still have that human interaction. But once you've had that human interaction, then there's no reason you can't then automate things after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's lots of ways that plays out as well in a different way that actually AI enhances that human interaction. So I hate doing this, but just to go into my GP hat. So it's just there it is. Thanks. Yeah, André. Yeah, it's late for the appointment, but yeah, there's lots of AI developments in general practice in the medical space at the moment, and there are platforms now that help us, in the middle of my consultation to help take notes. And initially, certainly, and this was truly the case in the early phases of this. There'll be errors, there'll be things where actually, okay, I have to go and check it, and as I would anyway. But I sort of feel like I'm spending more time correcting it than I am. I should have just done this myself, blah blah blah. Yeah. But then, obviously, as you say, the algorithms, the technology is advancing so quickly that that's becoming less and less. And now what I'm finding is that by using some of those tools, I'm actually able to talk to a patient rather than talk to my computer screen.
Absolutely.
Now, everyone consults differently, and I don't tend to do that. I do tend to look at people when I'm talking to them, despite typing and things. But now I can just go, great, let me just focus wholeheartedly on what you're saying, rather than trying to touch type
and look them in the eye. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's great. That helps. That's AI helping the human interaction, rather than replacing it or otherwise hindering it or diminishing it. So there's still a long way for that to go. I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to the AI realm in medicine, but I do like to keep up with this kind of thing. I love going to the conferences that are put on regularly that tell us what the advancements are in best practice in general practice. And it's great to see just people really, like you say, like yourself, Phil, really embracing the fact that it's here. Let's use it to help the things that we've been trying to do for years and years and years. And in some ways, almost take a step back, but in a positive way. Take a step back to when we are just, the patient and the doctor having that conversation, rather than everything being, make sure I tick this box, that template, tick this. Oh, sorry, what did you say? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
And one of the things about medicine is that there is so much information you've got to take in.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way for AI to actually capture all that information and disseminate it back to you in a very structured, simple form.
Yeah.
Not simple, but in a structured way.
But in a way that then you can replicate, and it creates changing the framework of thinking as well.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
okay, when I'm looking back at a consultation, or I'm looking back at patient's notes, my head is now geared towards the structure that's there. And that's fine, it's consistent. Whereas before, you've got 1,000 different people doing things in 1,000 different ways. It's still there, but I may have to do a bit of extra interpreting to get to what I need.
Yes.
So there's that homogeneity has always been a massive challenge in that space, because we're all independent clinicians. We all do things differently. Absolutely. We all consult differently. We will have different ways of solving those problems, and we have different ways of documenting it, right?
Yep.
So initially, I'll absolutely, like I was kind of alluding to earlier, I hold my hands up and say, it was taking me more time than it was saving, and I couldn't see the learning curve of that improving. But certainly now is becoming very clear that adds a degree of homogeneity to how we process a massive gargantuan thing that is healthcare. That can only really be of benefit, so long as it's done obviously carefully, cautiously, blah, blah, blah. Of course, yeah. But it's, that's going to be a very interesting space to see.
Definitely. But the number of people I talk to, and they don't realise that you can, on a Windows machine, just hit the Microsoft button and the H button and talk.
Yeah.
And you can do it on an Apple as well, don't worry. Apple were ahead of the game. And you can talk at this speed, and it will dictate it straight onto a Word document, into an email, into any other document. And it used to be pretty poor. Now it's pretty good. And that, in fact, it's very good. Yeah. And I reckon that alone, for most people, will save them 2-3 hours a week. Of efficiency. And that's not AI, that's just technology. That's
just technology.
And it's knowing it's there. People don't know it's there.
Yeah. But you're right, it used to be rubbish, and that will be a barrier for most people. That memory of it being more of a headache than it was a time saver. That won't work. There's no way it can do it. But no, clearly there's space for it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. Obviously, coming from that background, it's like obviously when you guys used to have your voice note takers. And you record it so that you can then go through it again at home or whenever you got spare time to read through those notes that you actually didn't have time to type because it was just so much easier to speak into the microphone. But now you can go beyond that. Yeah. And my question for you was. And I know this is like, obviously, don't want to just...
Oh, the hat's firmly on. It's
not off. I was going to say it's fascinating because my argument against that would be, but then don't you want to think of other possibilities? Because I feel like you would focus too much on the results that you're getting from the prompt or the information you just fed it. But then you reply, but even before I made that question, you said, but then... that actually is giving me time now to actually look at the person. So you will pick up on those things that older people used to pick up. It was sitting that way. It looked like it was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But this is it. I mean, so but you touched on a really good point, and this comes down to, I think this isn't just medicine. This isn't life, right? So, as I've mentioned previously, I am also a GP trainer. So I train people who are in the last few years of their GP training when they're just about to fully qualify, and they have to sit exams, right? So, and one of the exams is a simulated kind of clinic, right? Now, in that simulated clinic, they don't have to take notes, they don't have to do any of that. It's all about how they interact with the patient. Well, okay, I agree, good. But then you hit real life,
and you've got to say notes.
You've got to take notes. You've got to not do it. So I'm, we're drilling into people. Oh, make sure you pick up on that cue. Or when they rate, I'm slightly exaggerating these things just for effect to make the point. When they raised the eyebrow, they meant this. When they, just looked this way, they meant that. But there are 1,000 different things we pick up on cues: body language, tone of voice, everything that can change an entire consultation. That you're not going to see if you're just not looking at them. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and how we communicate and how we make people feel listened to. That patient who walks into my room or into my trainee's room, they have to leave that room feeling like you've done the best for them, right? And that's hard to do if you're not even connecting with them in that level. Even if in my heart of hearts and my colleagues' heart of hearts, that's exactly what they're doing. Like, we're doing our best every single time. it's hard to sell that if an outsider looking in is seeing you kind of
focusing on typing it in.
But so hence, like I was coming back to before, that the help that it provides with the human interaction is it's an interesting concept that I never would have quite put in my own head until I'd seen it myself, and because it almost feels backwards. Just the whole concept of the tech making you less techy in the moment. But that's something that is, as I say, universal to everything. I always wonder how can I make that work in the photography world? How can that help me with my client interactions?
But I mean, you look at you're talking about note taking.
That's it.
You look at some of the note taking bits of software that you can add into your Zoom call, for example, or your Teams call. And the efficiency that can bring out. So literally you can have a service like Fireflies, or even I think Zoom's now got it embedded into it as well. And 2 minutes after you've had an hour conversation with somebody on Zoom, you've got all the notes, you've got all who said what, you can have video in there as well, so you can refer back to when it was, what the video moment was. You can actually have who's got the action points to do. And that literally within 3 or 4 minutes hits your email, and obviously the danger is you rely on it and it fails for some reason, but actually you've got everything there. You don't need to be taking notes even during a meeting.
That's it. And I feel like for us, because obviously we do consultation calls, we do want to know, what the clients want, where they're getting married, how many people. There's all these different bits. And it's not that we're not going to take notes, it's that I can focus more on the conversation that we're having, and I will take key notes, like keywords.
What date is the wedding?
Oh no, I just hit my cheapy handwriting. Oh no! Hieroglyphs.
I wasn't counting on having actually to use it.
Have to do anything,
But it does. It then frees you up to actually just be present in that conversation, and that means that you will take that conversation in a lot better because you are now not.
You're focused.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think one important thing, it's obviously we talked about AI and automations. And I suspect one of the biggest concerns of people, especially your clients, is how easy are these things to implement, and how much are we talking about? Obviously, in terms of cost, things vary and stuff, and there's different. But how easy would it be to implement anything like that into someone's website?
Well, certainly using AI can be expensive. I mean, if you're looking at an enterprise solution, it's going to be very expensive. But it's probably 1/10 of the price it used to be if you wanted to implement something similar. For a local business, using AI and using something like ChatGPT, we're talking about $20 a month.
That's it.
So it's not expensive, pretty much unlimited. You can use free versions, but they're not as good. They are restrictive. But you're going to get almost everything you want out of it. Yes, there are, again, upsells. You can go higher than that. But whether it's Google or ChatGPT or Claude, they tend to be $20 to $30. And that gives you plenty.
It's definitely cheaper than an extra pair of hands, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And no HR issues. But they do say you've got to think about it as being like employing an intern or employing a new member of staff. You've then got to train it to what you're doing, how you want to represent the business, or how you want the large language model to represent the business. Give it all of the parameters, give it all the boundaries. Tell it all about your business. Who's your target market? How do you want to write? Is it professional? Is it amusing? Is it whatever scale you want to have it to be, so that the output is not generic and the output can be more tailored to your business. So it's like employing that intern. You've got to, if I'd ask an intern just to please go and write a blog, it's going to be pretty dull if they don't know anything about the business. So it's exactly the same using large language model.
Could be the best blog ever.
It would just be very random.
It's opened my eyes.
Nothing about the business, but it could be about football.
Back to that Mermaid and Dragon, I think.
So we talked about AI, innovation, automation. Are there any other new technologies or upcoming technologies, or even things that have been present up till now that you are excited to see and implement?
Definitely. I think the one, it's using those tools, and that is the ability to code. So, you can now have an idea, as a 15-year-old, you can have an idea, you can talk to ChatGPT, you don't even have to write it down, and it will create the code for you to do it. So in other words, everybody now can be an entrepreneur. They can have an idea, they can think about it, they can get it to the point of having a viable product, in effect, to go and test it for virtually no cost. And that code, because large language models are awesome at writing code and writing apps. So that's really exciting going forward, I think, for people to be able to get their products to market, for anybody to be able to get a product to market.
Yeah, that is a watch this space moment. But don't watch this space. Get on the bus, right?
Yeah,
Don't miss the bus.
at least get on the bus while it's got a driver to buy the ticket.
Rather than just a brick on the accelerator.
But definitely go and listen to podcasts about AI. There are lots out there. Watch
including this one. Sorry, yes.
Watch YouTube videos about it, because there are people out there who are willing to give so much for free. And that's what I would suggest people do. I mow the lawn and I'm listening to a podcast because exactly that. It's a good opportunity to learn.
And speaking of learning, actually, it's got nothing to do with learning. I don't know why I said that. So you once had political aspirations, I understand, Philip. This is completely off topic now, just changing it up.
Completely off topic,
but
yes.
This was a fascinating thing to learn about you. You once tried to take over the world. You tried to...
With AI?
Yeah, with AI.
You might try again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was a moment down the pub. Yes, there's a surprise.
Hey, the best stories. Start with that.
Yeah, we were in the pub, and I decided it was a general election. I thought I'd go and stand for my own party. So we set up a political party and stood in Chelmsford in Essex. I was the only independent who was standing in that seat, and for the Unsatisfied Voters Party. And my kids always say, well, actually, if you ran now, you'd probably get in on the name alone. It was fascinating because I was actually standing against a Conservative member of the government. He was a cabinet minister, and he only got in by about 500 votes. And I got all of 127. They didn't let me have a recount there. Try and save my deposit, but no. But it was at that stage it only cost £100. It was the best £100 I think I've ever spent in my life. It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I mean, I assume you've kept your manifesto and all your policies.
I have a manifesto, yes.
I dare not ask what's in it. We mustn't get too political on the show.
But it was fun because I was standing against a cabinet minister. There was quite a lot of press around it as well. And they've got to give equal time to everybody.
Of course.
So I was on local radio, I was on local TV, and it was good. It was good and good fun. Good fun.
So there is something missing from that though. So I got in the pub, but then how did that then turn into? Actually,
after a few pints, it was it was right. I think we need to do something about this.
Yeah.
And so
this is what we'll do. Yeah, this all makes sense.
So and I didn't realise it because I was 21 at the time. I was actually the youngest person in the country to stand.
Fantastic.
I didn't realise that they count the votes, the postal votes, in the morning.
Right.
And as a candidate, you can obviously go along and witness it. Well, they counted the votes, the postal votes, and I didn't have a single vote. Now, nobody in the history of time has ever had zero. And I know I couldn't vote for myself. I didn't live in the constituency. So I wasn't going to vote for myself. So there was a chance at that point I was going to get zero. So, but it was...
I mean, that first vote coming in must have been a big...
Definitely, yeah. And then, of course, you're up on stage when they announce the results and everything. So, it was good fun. It was good fun.
Great. I love how you light up talking about it as well. It's got a real fire in your voice. Well,
it's something that a lot of people have done, but not many people have done. So it was fun. It was fun, definitely.
Excellent. And so how's that kind of so you had your fun at 21, then you went into the city, like you said. So I assume I'm curious about the rest of the Philip Waite around that. So family, that kind of thing.
Family is a big thing for me. I've been married for 36 years now, and got 2 daughters.
Wonderful.
And it was all nicely balanced because I had 2 daughters, and one daughter had 2 sons, and one daughter had 2 daughters.
Brilliant.
It was all perfectly balanced, harmony and feng shui and all of that. But actually, we had booked up to go on a summer holiday in France this year in August, and then February comes around, and my daughter turns around and says, "I'm pregnant." And it's due in August, so we're not going to France now. And not only that, but it's the daughter who has 2 sons, and she's having a girl. So it's completely thrown everything out of balance.
So are we now putting pressure on the other daughter?
No. Because she works for me, she can't have the time off. She works in the company, she can't have the time off.
I'm sure a creative man like you, Phil, can make ChatGPT sort that problem out. Just put the right prompt in,
exactly,
right guidance, put the barriers up for the lanes for the bowling lane, right? That's it, done. Yeah, watch this space on that, I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll wait for an announcement of grandchild number 8, whoever it'll be, yes. Oh, that's wonderful to hear, great.
Yeah,
and so one works for you, and doing what in the business?
She's really an account manager.
Okay,
so
great.
She looks after the businesses we've got on board.
Oh, great.
So that works well, and then the other one works in pension administration. So
Yeah. So no HR issues with one of them, I guess. But yeah. Fantastic,
Philip. Thank you so much for coming along.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
I think it's been incredible to be able to speak to you and to find out all of these quirks, especially the last one. I really didn't see that one coming at all. Why not?
Absolutely.
Who knows? I'm now scared of what I'll do after the next few pints.
But thank you very much for having me. It's been really fun.
It's been fantastic. Great. And of course, we're going to put up links to your website as well and how to get in touch with you. What's the best way? Is it via your website? Is there
probably via the website or LinkedIn or Facebook? So yeah.
Brilliant. Great. But once again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys. Really enjoyable.
Thank you.